Alright, this video is probably a little overdue. I'm going to be taking a look at a review of the 2002 Lexus is300 in the manual. Kind of rare. So, we just got some nice rubber on these. This is a Cooper Xeon, I think the GS3. Yeah, RS3 G1. It's a nice tire, feels pretty good. And this, as you can see, the car is pretty dirty right now. We're gonna give her a wash up and then we'll take her for a spin and I'll tell you how I feel. Let's see, I've had this car for about a year and a half now. So it's been some dialing it in because it was certainly not in great shape when I got it. Alright, so we got her all cleaned up. Let's take a check at the interior here. Still kind of dirty in here. Really like this interior. You see, this car is kind of known for this almost watch style chronograph, speedometer, has a little MPG gauge. It's not really that helpful. The battery gauge is actually kind of helpful. I just replaced the battery and I kind of started reading around 10 volts and I knew it was time to switch it out. Temperature gauge, then you have your tach over on the left. Over in the center, the stereo's okay. To be honest, I don't listen to the stereo a whole lot. I listen to the car because, well, a lot of my commutes are pretty short, so I don't really find the need to fire something up, and I don't like listening to regular radio. If I'm taking trips, I have the aux cord, which just pulled a little move on Amazon and got this little car auxiliary cord adapter, which you just pretty much pull all this back and plug this guy in, and I believe when you hit the disc button, it moves over to the USB. So that's what I'll fire up on longer trips, and it sounds good, especially for a 2002. Can't really expect a whole lot more, but for the most part I do not really listen to the stereo. Taking a look at the wheel, I really like the 9-3 grip is super solid, and this wheel is super simple. It's got a quality leather. It is from 2002, but this leather has held up very well. And it's got a nice stitch on it. Yeah, a lot of people throw aftermarket wheels on these, but I don't really find the need to do so because this wheel has held up so well. Another really cool part, I think, is the stainless steel pedals, or aluminum pedals. I'm not really sure, but it definitely has a really nice look to it, and it's cool that the dead pedal is also matching. Most cars that offer metal pedals do not do that. Taking a look at the shifter, this is a 5-speed. You got your little map right there. This is just an aftermarket Delrin, which is like a plastic variant, and throws aren't too bad. This is the stock shifter. I trialed the Ralco short shifter and didn't really like it. Didn't feel that it was really kind of notchy, and it kind of made a lot more noise. I felt it didn't really match the character of the car so well. So I got this knob, and the threads are actually pretty deep in, or pretty close to the top of the knob. So that really helps. It shortens it just a hair, and I think it's lightweight makes the shifter feel less sloppy, whereas the stock knob has a little bit more weight to it, and it's just a hair taller. But I really like the feel of this, and I like the look too. It's just a standard white no nonsense kind of ordeal. So one unfortunate part is in this interior is, yeah, so they give you this little divider to separate drinks, and it's kind of chintzy. Yeah, you can fit a can or a small bottle, but your bigger drinks obviously are not going to fit in here, so that's kind of a bummer. So other than that, you got a pretty softly padded armrest, which I actually really like this armrest. I think it puts my arm within a great vicinity of the shifter, so I appreciate that. And other than that, there's just a small little cubby down here to keep a couple extra things, easy pass. So these seats, this seat is kind of beat. It's kind of like a suede with some leather on the outside, which I really like. This one looks bad, but it's actually in better shape than it looks. This one is a little bit better down here. But these seats are pretty comfortable. They're not immensely bolstered, but they keep me in place. I am a bigger guy at about 6'2", 200, but they do a pretty good job. And we have a sunroof up here, which I really like. Some cars I don't really care for the sunroof situation in, but this one, because it's a very small cockpit, you know, I feel like I really notice when the sunroof is open. So I like that. And yeah, I think that about does it for up here. Coming to the back seat, there really isn't a whole lot of room to speak of. With my seat in its normal driving position, you know, there's really not much room back here. I could kind of squeeze for a tight trip. If I wanted to be more generous, I could. So, I mean, for long trips, not so much, but it does get the job done. So taking a look at the trunk, it's got a gas cap release and a trunk release. Trunk, not a whole lot to write home about here. Not a whole lot of space. But there is a little pass-through, which kind of got a unique contraption there, and a bag on the other side, which can be helpful for skis in a pinch. I got this from the previous owner with about 165,000 miles on it. I have about 178,000 miles on it now, and the only thing that came on it that was not stock is this AEM intake, and it definitely enhances the sound, because as you'll see in a moment, this chassis doesn't have a whole lot of sound to it, and this is kind of atypical for a V6. So I love the way the intake makes it sound. Things I've done to the car include valve cover gaskets over both of these valve covers here. I have done spark plugs, which are in this channel in the center, as well as coil packs, which are in the channel in the center. And the reason I did that is because I was having some misfire issues. No misfires since, which is awesome. And the other thing I have done is replaced the fuel injectors here, because I was having some injector ticking, which indicates that some carbon has built up on those injectors. So I took off the fuel rail right here and replaced all 6 of those. And from an engine perspective, this thing really runs mint. I'm really happy with it. So I mean, there are some just not. So, I mean, some of the suspension parts are showing their age, being a 2002, but from an engine perspective, this thing really runs well. I replaced the timing belt. That's the only one I did not do by myself. It's a much more involved job. So timing belt and water pump I got done when I got the car, and because that's something, obviously if that goes, then you're kind of SOL, especially with a car this old. You're probably not, well, depending on what situation you're in, if you're looking to swap, turbo, supercharge, etc., that's not such a big deal. But if, you know, I tend to run this mostly stock, so that's kind of a deal breaker for me. Other than that, I love how much space is in this engine. I've replaced the first O2 sensor right there, front and center, and just how easy that was to do for someone like me with very minimal, mechanic. So I was working on your car experience. That's something I really like, and you can see, like, being right here on the exhaust manifold. If you wanted to do an exhaust swap, there's so much room in this engine bay, which makes it's not intimidating to work on, which is awesome for someone in my shoes who doesn't really know a whole lot about cars. So one thing this car does have is a clutch dampener, which is this right here, and what that does is it pretty much mitigates some throttle inputs or some clutch inputs, and supposedly makes it smoother. But a lot of people will put a union around this dampener and you can do that with a brake line union. And also Figs Engineering makes a union where these cables can come together, and here's your clutch fluid. So and then you can take this piece out if you so choose. I've not really had an issue with the clutch, so I have not pursued that. Other points to note is there is the oil filter. It's kind of in a crummy spot, so it doesn't make oil changes that easy. I kind of try to keep my eye on it, and if you really have to do it when the car is pretty cold, I like to check it, because I just finger tight it as opposed to really cranking it down. And because I just finger tight it so I can get it out when I go to change the oil, I like to check it here and there to make sure it's not leaking oil. And I also like to check the oil level intermittently, because that filter is in a tough spot to really crank down. Alright, so take a look at the driving aspects of the 2002 Lexus is300 in the manual. I'm just on some back roads out here in upstate New York. Forgive the check engine light. It's just a vacuum leak. Does not affect the performance, and I'm still kind of troubleshooting it. So that is all good. One cool thing you see down here, we have a traction off and a snow mode. Never use a snow mode. I don't drive it in the snow ever, but I do have I frequently use this traction control off mode, and that's something that you have to press every time you want it, as it resets when the car is turned off. You see I press this button here, and on the dash I get the orange traction control off button, which is a must, because this car, if you want to drive it spiritedly, as you might, because it has 215 horsepower from the factory or so, and similar torque number from the factory. Maybe at this time, being a 2002, you got 16 years later, reasonably it's probably around 200. I think that's pretty fair. It's kind of a heavier car than you would expect for how little it is. I think it comes in around 3,300 pounds. So, but yeah, and this does have the limited slip differential, so rear wheel drive and limited slip differential, which is a big selling point for me with this vehicle. Manual transmission, limited slip diff, rear wheel drive. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking for from an enthusiast perspective. So let's take her for a run here. And again, the only modification here is the AEM intake. So this is the stock shifter, not the stock knob. It feels pretty good. It's not the shortest throw, but it is it's pretty communicative, and I think it matches the character of the car, being a more of a smooth rider. The Lexus type of deal. It's heavier weight. I felt that the railco was too notchy, so I think this does match the character of what Lexus is trying to go for and what I'm trying to get out of the car. So we'll just looks like we got a little straight here, so we'll do a little 5-mile-an-hour pull here. How about it? And the first gear does want to keep you out until you're moving very slow. There's 60. So not bad, not bad. Inline V6, or inline 6, sorry, I wanted to say V6. So inline 6, it gets up and goes pretty good, as you might expect. And one thing you're getting out of the, an inline 6 like this, and it's port injected, not direct injection, you're not going to get the carbon deposit buildups that a lot of these new manufacturers are seeing with all this direct injection. So this was one of the big pulls for me. I was kind of tentatively looking at a Fiesta ST, and started reading up on all the issues people are having. Oh, we have a little ADD moment. We'll get these curves right here. See how she handles this curve here. Stays pretty flat. I mean, there is a little bit of float, that Lexus float. I do not have coilovers on this car. People commonly put I think the BC racing coilovers, which is, I think it's around a $1,200 set, depending on which BC racing coil. There are a lot of different options coilover wise for this car, but I think people have found really good results with the BC coilovers. For what I am looking for at the car currently, I don't really find the need for coilovers quite yet. Now I might in the future, as if I start doing more autocross with it, throw it on some coilovers and see how it does. But as you can see, it doesn't roll over too bad, and the stock suspension does do okay, and it's definitely very very comfortable for normal driving. So that's a big plus of not having the coilovers. The other thing you're getting into, being a 2002, and being that this car has been in upstate New York, one thing you worry about is all the rusted parts that could be under there. So we'll get another pull here. So it does have the variable valve timing. So once it gets in like that, maybe around 4,300 RPMs, it does have, kind of similar to the VTEC, that sensation and engineering that Honda has. This has a second set of cams that it switches over to. So it's kind of cool because you can feel that extra little jolt when it gets to those higher RPMs. But that being said, it is not starving for power low, which is awesome, and it is one of the things that I love about this car. Sorry, I've been a little scatterbrained in this video. So where else are we at here? Yeah, just other general things. It's been a great opportunity for me to own this car because it's gotten me into some car maintenance, which I've had no previous experience with that. So being, gosh, this whole car comes apart with, like 14s and 17 hex heads, I feel. So it's like, being able to just pick up a hex set at Home Depot and go to town has been really a really good experience, and it's also got me to learn what I want and do not want from my vehicles in the future, and it's gotten me into looking into these things such as direct injection and the issues that people are having with direct injection and things of that nature. thing I wanted to note on this vehicle is the fuel economy. So I think it's rated for maybe 18 and 24 on the highway. So in my experience, I've gotten pretty much 19 to 23 miles per gallon respectively. I find myself frequently in the throttle, so I'm not really driving this thing for an MPG, a high MPG number. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You know, like the limited slip differential, rear wheel drive, manual transmission, it's tough to come by. And if you don't want to go for the German stuff like the BMW and deal with the slew of issues with those cars, this is a great option. And you know, you could strip this thing out on the interior side and you get a lot of that weight reduction, and you know, you could make this into a real track monster if you so choose. I plan to run it as so, just as a personal preference. If I get into the track stuff, I know that this car can do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys are enjoying the change of seasons to finally spring is here for us in upstate New York. It's been a battle getting out of winter, but everyone have a great rest of your day, okay?